This is The Guardian.
Hello and welcome to The Guardian Football Weekly. Ewan Murray's confidence was capital letters just about justified as Scotland limped to their second win in this international break. 2-1 over Belarus is enough to keep them on track for a playoff spot at the very least. Northern Ireland are level on points with Germany. If they beat them tonight, that is a big if. Almost as big an if. If Wales can beat Belgium, they're basically there. The Republic, I'm sorry, Barry. Also, all hail the Faroe Islands. 3 wins in a row after stunning the Czechs. How good. Closer to home are Nottingham Forest lining up Sean Dyche. If you're going to deny us Ange in the Premier League, at least getting Dyche back would ease the blow. Stevie G says no to Rangers, while Jack Wilshere might be going to Luton. And then we'll be joined by the founder of Grenfell Athletic, a football club set up in the wake of the tragedy that killed 72 people. There's a new documentary out called Beacon of Hope, the Grenfell Athletic story, and it's a beautiful film. As always, we'll answer your questions, and that's today's Guardian Football Weekly. On the panel today, Barry Glendenning, welcome.
Hi, Max.
Hello, Jordan Jarrett-Bryan.
Morning, mate.
And from Not the Top 20, George Elek, welcome.
Thank you, Max.
That's all right. Let's start with Scotland beating Belarus. Barca Jim says, I, for one, welcome our play utter shite, but get 3 points overlords. Barry, I bet Ewan was sweating after his confidence on Thursday.
I mean, as soon as he said that Ewan, with the possible exception of his predecessor as Guardian golf correspondent, Lawrence Donegan, is the most pessimistic man I have ever met. So when he voiced his utter confidence that Scotland would swat Belarus aside, the alarm bells started jangling in my head immediately. And I think it would be fair to say that in this international window, Scotland have absolutely robbed 6 points from their 2 games. Like, robbery. They should have lost against Greece. They beat them. And they were very lucky to beat Belarus. They won. That's the important thing. I think Ewan said in his match report, just, we will never speak of this game again. And that's probably a very wise policy. I mean, considering they won, Steve Clarke afterwards said, I was really, really disappointed with my team. And they were, it is fair to say, abysmal. And they were just lucky that Belarus aren't very good. There was some shocking defending, some real midfield lethargy. Belarus had, I think, 22 shots. They had a goal disallowed. They scored 1. But Scotland got over the line, and that's the important thing. They're guaranteed a playoff place at worst. But I did notice in the comments section under Ewan's report, a lot of Scotland fans, even though they may qualify for the World Cup, are not happy with the manner in which Clarke sets the team up. He's too defensive, they say. There's too much lethargy. There isn't enough imagination, attacking verve. But I just don't know. Which is more important? Just qualify no matter how you do it, or qualify and then go to the World Cup and get knocked out in the group stage again, which is probably what will happen, because Clarke is unlikely to change his ways at this stage.
I mean, I think, Jordan, if you haven't qualified since 1998, surely it's just get there any which way, right?
You take what you can get, yeah. Although, to Barry's point, a lot of Scottish fans that I know, after the last, Euros, the way they went out, it was... It wasn't good. It wasn't pretty, and they were a bit annoyed. They were kind of being patronised about just getting there and being at the party, but not really contributing and you know, showing their nation in the best possible light. Has there been a bigger 2 fingers to Premier League football than Scott McTominay? Because his resurgence in the last 2.5 years, I just think has been phenomenal. Hands up, I wasn't a particularly big fan of his. I thought he was a fairly average Premier League midfielder. But he's just gone on to be this like absolute beast, like MVP in Italy. You know, he's can't stop scoring for Scotland. I just want to give him his flowers, because he's a player that I was very down on. But since then, he seems to have just gone on to incredible heights.
Is that 2 fingers to the Premier League or just to Manchester United? I suppose that's the
Premier League, Man United, me, everybody.
Yeah. I mean, look, there are a couple of things, George. One, of all the VAR bits in this game, were Belarus a little unlucky? Is that? I mean, it is sort of a foul on McTominay, but it's not clear and obvious, is it?
No, well, but the clear and obvious thing is something we hold VAR to, and it's the threshold that should be met, but we know very well that isn't always the case, and they like to meddle in far too many. And I agree, like if it's down to the letter of the law, the way that VAR should be implemented, then I think they were unlucky. But it's funny this with Scotland, how, like, as Barry says, 6 points over the international break, 2 poor performances, certainly in Sunday night's game or Sunday afternoon's game, luck on their side in terms of officiating too. But they're on the brink of qualifying for the World Cup next summer, and you've got Steve Clarke, who became their longest serving ever manager yesterday. in circumstances where it wasn't much of a celebration because there's concern about the performance level. McTominay is clearly the poster boy, but you look through their whole team and it should be a much better, certainly attacking force than they currently are. And the crucial thing is, yes, they are. They've secured their at least a playoff spot in terms of qualification, but they're level on points with Denmark. And if they don't get past Denmark in their last 2 games, then they're going to end up in a 2-legged playoff in order to get to the World Cup. And I think Scotland fans probably feel like the way that they're playing, the chances are in that 2-legged playoff they're going to play a team who are probably better than Greece or possibly Belarus. I mean, certainly Belarus, possibly Greece. And they're unlikely to get through that. So it might look good now in terms of finishing in the top 2, but there's still a long way to go to get there. And they're going to have to improve, certainly in the November break and then onwards to the playoffs, unless they can get past Denmark and fire their way straight to the top of the group.
On that, so in the next round, Scotland go to Greece, Denmark play Belarus. And actually, so Denmark, they're level on points. Denmark's goal difference is way superior. So the thing is, Barry, as long as they avoid defeat against Greece, whether they win or draw, it will come down to having to win against Denmark. And it's not inconceivable, right?
If memory serves me correctly, they played pretty well against Denmark and Copenhagen, drew, could have won. I mean, bad performances are not the norm for this Scottish side. They've had 2 bad performances in this window that got away with them. And Denmark aren't all that. I would give Scotland every chance of beating them at home.
I thought Ben Gannock-Doak, at least, is a bright spark, isn't he, in there?
I didn't think he played well last night, actually.
Okay. I mean, no one did, but, he did one nice turn, didn't he? He did a nice turn, right? I'm clutching. Look, Northern Ireland, Barry, are level on points with Germany and Slovakia, right? They beat Slovakia 2-0. A lovely goal from Trey Hume, sort of lobbing it over Dubravka, who'd just gone for a bit of a wander. They play Germany tonight at home. I mean, it is a stretch, but imagine if they win it. Them playing Germany and Wales playing Belgium. These are 2 very difficult games, but just imagine Windsor Park getting up for it, scoring and then just parking the bus.
Northern Ireland have got themselves a good team there. Some lovely young players coming through. Shea Charles, great. The massive ball ache for Northern Ireland tonight is that Conor Bradley's got himself suspended for this game. He picked up a cheap booking. I don't know if it even was worthy of a yellow card, but it was needless booking. He got against Slovakia, so he misses out, and he was the standout player against Slovakia. But look, they've no business beating Germany, but stranger things have happened, and the stranger things have happened to Northern Ireland, so I wouldn't completely rule it out.
Just to follow up on what Barry was saying, I think this Northern Ireland team, if you're not focused on them, and why would you be unless you're Northern Irish, but it's a really, really exciting generation of talent coming through for Northern Ireland, many of whom are currently playing in the EFL, mainly in the Championship. But in Trey Hume, who's 23, he's played a lot of football for Sunderland and is now a Premier League player. In Shea Charles, as Barry mentioned there, who's one of the standout players in the Championship. Ethan Galbraith, who's gone to Swansea and has been the signing of the season so far in the EFL at 24, a brilliant ball player. Isaac Price, who is a goal-scoring attacking midfielder playing for West Brom and has been their best player so far this season. Devaney, who we all know from his penalty exploits for Crystal Palace, who's an exciting young player. Conor Bradley is, as Barry mentioned, even Brodie Spencer, who's a young right-back at Oxford, who I'm pretty sure will play in the Premier League at some point. But these are all... It's a nucleus of a squad who are all in their early 20s, who are all playing regular minutes, and I'm pretty sure will all certainly have the talent to play top-flight football. And even if it doesn't come off for Northern Ireland this time around, this promise, I think, is the beginning of something really special. And it wouldn't surprise me at all if this is golden generation might be cursing it, but certainly an exciting team to follow in the next few years.
You can't say the same for the Republic of Ireland, Barry.
No. Oh, I don't even want to talk about this.
Oh, it was sad because you've done so well. And Kelleher saves that Ronaldo penalty brilliantly, and you think,
Yeah.
at least you'll get a point here in Portugal.
Yeah, point might even not have been much use, but it was heartbreaking. They played well. I'll give them that. They went to Lisbon. They set out to not lose. They lost to an injury time winner from Ruben Neves. Remarkably, that was his first goal for Portugal, which surprised me. And he scored it wearing the number 21 shirt, which he inherited from his pal, his best mate, Diogo Jota. That was Portugal's 28th attempt on goal. I think Ireland had one. Portugal rewarded a penalty, which I thought was harsh. It was one of those handballs you hate.
Oh, ridiculous.
Delighted to see Cristiano Ronaldo miss from the spot. That was the only bright spot of the game, really, for Ireland. But I have to take my hat off. They're a very, very limited team. They played as well as they probably could have against this team of superstars away from home, and got caught with a late sucker punch.
In England's Group K, Albania won 1-0 away at Serbia. So that is a huge result for them, given the rivalry and the historical and political tensions between those two countries. And a huge win in the race for the playoff spot below England, if that's not getting carried away. England 5 wins from 5, scored 13, haven't conceded. Play Latvia tomorrow night. Because of that Serbia-Albania result, they can get their World Cup spot with a win against Latvia. Your thoughts, George? I know you're covering England a lot on the improvement in England in the last two games.
I think it's been very obvious, hasn't it? I mean, to start with, under Tuchel, I think it was underwhelming. The results were definitely good. There was a decent performance against Latvia at home where we only won 3-0, and probably on another day it could have been a few more. But basically, since taking the lead against Serbia, we've looked brilliant. I was there on Thursday night, and even though it was a friendly, and even though certainly in the second half it felt like a friendly, I was completely taken aback by the way that England approached the game, having gone 1-0 up, where England scored within 2 or 3 minutes, and the relentless pressure and pressing from a team full of Premier League players playing in a friendly in a game that they basically knew they were going to win, having gone ahead. Like, Morgan Rogers just never stopped running in the entirety. Thomas Tuchel was out at the end of in his technical area, effectively leading the press from the dugout. It felt to me like a group of players that have completely bought into certainly the out of possession work that Tuchel's demanding from them. And that is exciting because, even though I'm a big Southgate believer and will argue with anyone who tells me he did a bad job, there's no denying that we were a very boring team generally when we went ahead. It was pragmatic. We looked to kind of manage games rather than continue. Whereas, I felt sorry for poor Joe Rodon and Ethan Ampadu on Thursday night, who just wanted a second on the ball and couldn't get it. So, yeah, it feels like there's been a bit of a shift. It's still pretty frustrating. We'll have to see who we play in the March friendlies at Wembley. But it still feels pretty likely that the next time England face a team of the quality of Spain or Brazil will probably be in a World Cup quarter-final if we get there, which is not ideal prep for Tuchel not to manage an England match against a kind of top-tier team until the major tournament. But it feels like there's been a huge shift. And also, I think good on Thursday that we saw an England team who are able to be really effective in terms of chance creation and goal scoring without Jude Bellingham and Harry Kane in the squad. So, it's things have definitely, I think, turned in Tuchel's favour.
I just find the whole overall criticising and questioning of Thomas Tuchel's decisions really interesting / funny, because I look at it like this. You've flown in this apparent world-class chef, right, who's got this really successful restaurant, cooks these really good meals everyone loves on the continent, but you brought him into your fancy London restaurant because this restaurant has got lots of potential, but since 66 hasn't quite really got the reviews that you really wanted to get. And this chef's got a different way of doing things, but you brought him in because he's the guy, right? And I just thought it's worth, I'm in the camp of a handful of people that doesn't believe nations should have foreign managers, but that's just, that ship has sailed. But you brought him in. You've gone against St George's Park projects. Yeah. And he might put a certain particular pepper on a meal or a certain sauce that's a little bit different. And you're like, I'm not quite sure about that. But just let the guy cook. Let the guy cook. You've brought him on the premise that this guy is the winner. I like George. You won't find a bigger Gareth Southgate fan than me. But the narrative was, oh, he's a nice guy, unifier, but can't quite win. So we're going to go the opposite way. We're going to get the guy who might ruffle a few feathers, but he's the guy that's going to win the thing. So let the guy get on with it. Like, he might make a few decisions that you might not agree with, but just trust that the guy that you've brought in and paying a lot of money to, you've brought him in because you feel he knows what he's doing. And I just find the constant, should he drop Bellingham? That's poor. The formation, the football. Just trust the guy knows how to win tournaments. He's going to win you a World Cup.
We'd all be out of a job.
Well, I was going to say, you've got to say something. We can't just say, well, good on him. He's picked them. That's good. Bye.
Fair point. But my overall point is that the constant just kind of backbiting, and I just find it really, really funny that you wanted a guy that could win. This is the guy you've put your faith in that can win. So just kind of let the guy get on with it and just trust that he knows what he's doing.
I'm just wondering if George let Thomas Tuchel down by sitting in stony silence for the 75 minutes before leaving early to beat the traffic.
Baz, you'll know better than most people that you can't make noises in the media centre, can you? You can't. I couldn't get up and start. I certainly wasn't launching any Mexican waves either though from the press box. But I mean, it's been covered. But I think Tuchel's fully in his right. It's quite refreshing to have a guy. I actually agree with Jordan. Where in an ideal world, I think international football should be showcasing the best homegrown talent, and that should be both in terms of players, but also in the dugout and coaching staff. Like, that should be the way that it is, but it isn't. And I've got no issue at all with Thomas Tuchel being our manager because it isn't. But I think it's almost refreshing to have a guy who, unlike Southgate, who was kind of woven into the very fabric of the FA, and therefore probably couldn't really make comments like the ones that Tuchel made after the game. To have a guy who basically he signed a contract after the World Cup. It's very unlikely he's going to be our manager after the World Cup, regardless of what happens. He has no real affinity towards English football. He has no, loyalty towards the FA. To have a guy who can come in and not really care if he upsets a few England fans, not really care who he upsets, and put it right. And there will be a focus, not in the qualifiers in November, but there will be a focus in March because of what he said in the two friendlies ahead of the World Cup as to what the atmosphere is like. And I'm pretty sure that there will be fewer paper aeroplanes. There will be a genuine attempt for England fans to go and enjoy themselves and make a noise. Because what should be said is that the Wales fans, I commented on this on Twitter, and I had a lot of England fans saying, what do you expect? It's a friendly, like, it doesn't matter. Well, Wales fans, and obviously away fans are always going to be more vociferous, but they made an absolute racket for the whole second half, and they were 3-0 down in a friendly. So if they can do that, why can't we find a way, even if it's to collect 2,000-3,000 England fans and stick them next to the away fans, and then the rest of the 77 can be a family area. Just find a way to ensure that there is a part. If you want to be a match-going England fan and you want to go to Wembley, you can be amongst like-minded people and create a bit of an atmosphere.
Choirs from the home counties, that could happen. Does anybody? I wanted this, and we've done this, and every outlet I've heard has done it or written it. I feel like slightly uncomfortable with the sort of narrative about Jude Bellingham being just a bad bloke, and I feel there's like a lot of conjecture around it, and I just wondered if anyone felt that was, fine, because rumours are rumours, but I don't know what you think, George, because he spoke this weekend about his mental health, and
I would say that Jude Bellingham speaking about his mental health in the last week or so, it's obviously a very positive thing that a young footballer can feel like they can do that, but secondly, it's probably a bit of a message from everybody involved, effectively, to remind people that this is a young guy. Yes, he might be a superstar, and yes, he might have the job that all of us would crave, and yes, he might have a bank balance that all of us can dream about, but that doesn't change the fact that he is a human being where criticism and personal jibes and assumptions about his character are going to hurt him and upset him. And we, as a nation, we know that there are footballers in the past who have been treated in a certain way that has impacted both their professional and personal lives in a negative way. So no one really knows the truth, and I would definitely say that not just with Bellingham, but in any case, we shouldn't be making assumptions about negative traits of personality and anything else about a player. I think it's very telling that Bellingham gave that interview, and we should both read it and what it says, but also maybe between the lines too.
I think there's two things going on here. I think there's one side whereby I agree with you, Max. I am a little bit uncomfortable with this narrative building around him that he's a troublemaker. From what I hear, the England players absolutely love him. He's not an issue with any of the England players in the camp. But there's this thing, I think, in the English kind of mentality of we don't like people that are very confident. We don't like people that kind of go above their station. He's a very confident young man. He's very confident in his ability. He's very vocal about how much he wants to win, and we see that on the pitch. And I think that doesn't chime well with the way that the English like their footballers to be. He's not a humble guy, and I think, so what? The fact that we're members of the media and the press here, he doesn't do interviews with the media, is frustrating to me, because I'd love to speak to him and sit him down and have a chat with him. I think he could be quite an interesting person. But if he doesn't want to do interviews, then he doesn't want to do interviews. That's just something that we have to suck up. However, I do think there's a world in which Thomas Tuchel doesn't take him to the World Cup next year. I think he probably will, but it wouldn't surprise me if he wasn't part of that squad. Because if Thomas Tuchel, going back to my earlier point, feels that despite having this phenomenal talent in his team, actually isn't what he wants this team to be or to play.
He's a great blancmange, and Thomas Tuchel is making a bolognese. Doesn't work.
There you go, and both are delicious, but maybe what he wants to do isn't particularly correct. And just finally on Bellingham, I would say that I think the reason why Thomas Tuchel doesn't want him is because we're in this era of system managers, and it's a little bit similar to Bruno Fernandes. You've got this phenomenal talent that wants to do everything. We've all been to school with that guy at school that can get the ball from the goalkeeper, beat 4 players and score a goal. In systems, that doesn't really work. You need to know where your players are going to be. I remember the Euros being there last year. He'd be at left back sometimes. He'd be at right wing. He'd be centre mid. And I think that's because he knows he can get the ball and do something. But in a system, I'm not sure that, in fact, it doesn't work. And that might be the reason why, that lack of discipline, that might be the reason why I have this kind of nagging feeling that there could be an outside chance that he actually shocks the world and doesn't take him to America next year.
Wales play Belgium tonight. A win could take them to the top of Group J after Belgium and North Macedonia drew 0-0 on Friday. North Macedonia top on 12 points. Belgium have 11 from 5. Wales 10 from 5. North Macedonia have played 6. Such an enormous game, Barry.
Yeah, massive. I wonder how Ellis is feeling about it. On the day, this Wales side can be very good. We know how good Belgium can be. We know how bad Belgium can be. It's a hard one to call. I think Belgium probably should win, but it would not be a massive shock if they didn't.
I was pretty concerned about the way that Wales, certainly in the first half, were on Thursday. It's a friendly, but Craig Bellamy came out and spoke a lot before the game about how important it was for many reasons. Because it was England, because they had the Belgium game, because they needed to basically set the tone, and that first half an hour was as poor a performance as I can really remember seeing live in terms of comparison to the opposition. Like, England were able to cut through Wales at will, whilst Wales were basically unable to get out of their half. And given the quality of the opposition in terms of individuals against Belgium is similar to England in many ways. Obviously important that they were better in the second half and they created a couple of chances and forced Pickford into a couple of saves, but they're going to have to be far, far better than they were on Thursday to get a result tonight.
Hugh says, could the Faroe Islands possibly qualify for the World Cup? Pablo says, please discuss the Faroe Islands, in which there are 7,500 men aged between 18 and 40. Produce a squad that's mathematically challenging for qualification. Is the Nations League growing fish out of minnows? It's their third win, Jordan, and unbelievable scenes.
Yeah, it was great. Some good finishes as well in this game. Some really good goals in this particular game. And yes, that jumped out to me is that the Emirates Stadium at full capacity has more people than the population of this nation. I love those sort of stats. And yeah, I think you're right, Max. I don't think they will do it, but I think this particular game they had a momentary celebratory 90 minutes to kind of get through there because they believe, and if you don't have belief in football, what do you have?
Yeah, absolutely brilliant scenes, weren't there? Before we end part one, producer Ty has done some research. So it's the first time a producer's done research for the pod in decades. So I'm going to read it out regarding the people who've scored the most goals ever, if Erling Haaland is to catch them. Arthur Friedrichsreich from Brazil scored an unconfirmed 1,329 goals in 1,239 matches between 1909 and 1935. Lajos Tishy, Hungary, who played for Budapest Honved, excuse me, Wilson, for the pronunciation, scored 1,917 goals between 1953 and 1971. So, he's got some work to do. That is based on research by the Rec Sport Soccer Statistics Foundation, the RSSSF. So thank you for doing all that work. And that'll do for part one. Part two, we'll begin with possibly Dyche in and Ange out. Welcome to part two of the Guardian Football Weekly. From the BBC, well-placed sources have indicated Sean Dyche is a candidate to replace Ange Postecoglou, who took over from Nuno in September. It's one of those sentences, Barry, that at the start of the season you can't write. Well, in October, Sean Dyche will be the favourite to replace Ange at Forest, but here we are.
Yeah, it is ridiculous that Ange might get sacked after, 7 games? Several of which I think Forest have played quite well in. But this is the world we live in now, or the football world. And it is a fact. I think he's only won one of the past 17 Premier League games. He's been a head coach of either Spurs or Forest. So that is clearly not sustainable. His style is the polar opposite of Nuno's. Sean Dyche is kind of similar to Nuno, but not as good or not as effective. If I was a Forest fan, I'm not sure how I'd feel about all this, but Dyche lives locally, not that that matters, but he's loyal number 2, Ian Woan, is got rich Forest heritage. He played under Brian Clough. Steve Stone, I think, who's also on Dyche's coaching staff. He has Forest pedigree. So the Ange appointment just looks like it's not going to work out. They've got Chelsea next, and if they lose that, if he even makes it that far, if they lose that, which they probably will, one imagines he will be gone. He looks like a dead man walking. And I mean, you'd imagine Dyche will probably keep them up, which already this early into the season, that'll be a win for Forest fans, I think.
I can't think of that many occasions of a club making a succession of decisions to completely destroy something that had been built so well. Like, it's to go from Nuno to Dyche via Ange is one of the most crazy managerial successions I think I've ever heard in my life.
You made it sound like you made it sound like you're driving from Cambridge to London via Glasgow. What are you doing that for? Yeah,
that's basically it. I can't understand the decision making when you appoint a manager like Ange. Surely you want to do it with some kind of pre-season, like rather than right just after pre-season when the players who were successful under Nuno have been drilled over the summer to continue playing that way. And then you got someone coming in saying, right, we're going to move our defensive line 15 metres further forward. We're going to complete twice as many passes. And then when you do that, surely you understand that there are going to be teething issues. It would be absolutely ridiculous for Ange to come in at the time he came in, completely change the way that they're playing football and also win games of football at the same time. I don't understand what Marinakis was expecting to happen. But then, just like 6 weeks after you go and appoint a guy to completely shift the playing style and change the playing ideology, to then move on to someone who will take you kind of backwards behind where Nuno was in terms of playing style. And then when you consider that I don't think there's probably any Premier League club who, if they were hiring Nuno, would sack Nuno for Dyche. The whole thing is, even if, and I'm a Sean Dyche fan, I think there's a fair chance he'll do an okay job there. But even if he does an incredible job, the process still absolutely stinks, and I can't believe, if I was a Forest fan, you'd be livid.
Stephen Gerrard's ruled out the possibility of a return to Rangers. Danny Roll is in pole position, George. You obviously follow him a lot at Sheffield Wednesday. Good idea for Rangers, good idea for Danny Roll. Is taking the Rangers job a good idea for anyone?
I don't know. I mean, I thought that it was a good job for Russell Martin to take, so I'm not sure I'm the right person to ask about this. But I mean, Ryle is someone who, in his time at Sheffield Wednesday, has shown himself to be incredibly effective. And the job he did at Wednesday, where he came in mid-season and took over a club that were effectively like they were already relegated after a disastrous appointment in the previous manager, Cisco Munoz. Like, even though it's a very different environment and different club, a different league, there are massive similarities between the two jobs in terms of having to come in and immediately turn things around. So in that sense, I think it would be good. He's someone who's definitely deserves a crack at a big job. He's someone who, when things were going well, was immensely popular at Sheffield Wednesday. But he's also quite an abrasive character too, where I can imagine if things don't necessarily start well, then, with the passionate Rangers support, there could be some issues there. So it feels like it's a bit of a boom or bust appointment if it goes through. Like, it could be brilliant, but at the same time, if it goes badly, it could be spectacular.
George, could you give us a little précis of the Championship for us with your EFL hat on? Coventry leading the way is really interesting, I think.
Yeah, it's really interesting. Coventry look the kind of class team at this point. They top the league. They have scored an absurd amount of goals. Their goal difference up to this point is already plus 20, which, when you consider we're kind of in mid-October, is a phenomenal stat. But it all still feels very open. Borough have started well under Rob Edwards. The relegated teams haven't looked great. Leicester, we still don't know what's happening as to whether or not they're going to get a points deduction, but they've started the campaign pretty well under Martí Cifuentes. Ipswich haven't started the season too well, but are slowly improving, albeit helped by the fact that they were 1-0 down away at Blackburn Rovers, down to 10 men in the 80th minute, and the game is called off due to a waterlogged pitch, and they get to replay it in December, which, as you can imagine, has upset Blackburn Rovers fans quite a lot. And there are a couple of teams who are struggling that we wouldn't necessarily have expected to struggle. Norwich have just 8 points from 9 games, so Liam Manning coming under some pressure after their Derby Day defeat in the Old Farm on the Sunday before the international break, losing 3-1 at Portman Road. Southampton under new manager Will Still haven't really got going yet, 11 points from their 9 games, down in 17th. Birmingham, who started the season so well, now have only scored, I think, 8 goals from their 9 games on 12 points. So it feels like often we always say this, everyone always says the Championship is the most unpredictable league in the world. It absolutely isn't. I mean, it's much more unpredictable than the Premier League, but generally parachute payment teams do well, and teams who have been recently promoted out of League One do badly. This season, it feels like it's way more open because the perceived good teams aren't necessarily as good as they normally are. And, Sheffield Wednesday are clearly a team in a lot of trouble. And we'll have to see what happens there in terms of if they can find someone who can buy the club off Chancery, fingers crossed. But if not, what might come otherwise in terms of administration and points deductions and the rest of things. But they picked up 6 points so far from their games, and their rivals Sheffield United are rooted to the bottom of the table. But generally, some of the poorer teams that we thought relegation favourites, Preston were I think 4th favourites relegation. They're currently sitting 4th on 16 points. QPR were in that vicinity, and they're currently in 6th. So maybe this time it's true. Maybe this is the season where the Championship truly is unpredictable.
Barry, what do you make of Jack Wilshere to Luton?
I don't really have an opinion on it, Max. Is that allowed?
You're allowed an opinion. You can be completely indifferent. You can be indifferent to Jack Wilshere.
If Jack Wilshere takes over as Luton head coach, he will do so with my very best wishes.
Jordan?
I'll just say briefly, as an Arsenal fan, it's good to see him getting his first managerial position. And Luton fans can correct me if I'm wrong here, but it feels like the sort of club that will give him a chance to really get his hands dirty there and put his imprint on that club and do some good work. So it feels on the surface like it's that's a good first job for him to have.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, Luton are a club in League One who still get parachute payments. So as a manager, I think that's probably quite a good job to take. He also comes in October when the expectation for promotion after a poor start to the season has dampened a little bit. And I think that's probably why Luton have gone down this road, where they're probably thinking this is a guy who's obviously an amazing player, decent coaching pedigree. Like, maybe we're going to hire one of the most promising young managers in English football. But if we don't, then it's mid-season. We've already had a poor start. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work out. So I think for Wilshere, he comes into a club where he will definitely get time. The expectation won't be overly high. He's not going to get sacked in March if they're 7th. He might get sacked in March if they're 17th. But with the squad that he's inherited, it's a good job for him. And I think Luton will feel like they're giving opportunity to someone who is deserving of that.
That'll do for part 2. Part 3, Rupert Taylor joins us. He's the founder and manager of Grenfell Athletic. There's a documentary out called Beacon of Hope on TNT Sports. It's a beautiful film, and we'll chat to him next. Welcome to part 3 of the Guardian Football Weekly. Let's talk about a documentary that's on TNT Sports at the moment. It's called Beacon of Hope the Grenfell Athletic story. Really pleased to say Rupert Taylor, one of the founders of Grenfell Athletic, is joining us, and he's here now. Hey, Rupert, how are you?
Yeah, all good, thank you. Not too bad at all.
It's a beautiful film, and if we go to the start of it, before the fire, Rupert, there were 3 pitches under Grenfell Tower that were just a central part for the community there. And you worked as a youth club, is that right?
Yeah.
And there were kids, there were people that had died in that, and I'm sort of loath to bring you back to that time. And you don't have to talk about it if you don't want to, but there were people who died in Grenfell that you had known since they were kids. One you taught to ride a bike.
Yeah, so there was a number of children that I knew. I spent a lot of time with, personal time as well. So I was a youth worker at the local youth organisation, and I then became the manager from 2009 to 2018. And in that time, we would take young people on various residentials or places away from the kind of comfort zone, just to kind of get to know them more, but more importantly, allowing them to explore themselves, understand themselves a little bit more. We know when we take young people out of their comfort zone, how different they can be and how much learning can happen within. And when we was on a residential in Oxford, I realised that quite a few of the young people didn't know how to ride a bike. So I spent a whole day working on a couple of young people, and one of them was Baruch, who I taught how to ride.
There was one bit, Max, which I loved at the start of the documentary, where somebody was saying that whenever they were on one of those pitches playing, they used to always play as well as they could because they hoped there might be an Arsenal scout in the tower just watching out the window or something, which I thought was great.
Yeah, I'm sure a few of the players felt like that. I think Tayshan Hayden Smith, he's often said, like, when he was on the pitch, he felt like it was the Bernabeu, like, and everyone was there watching. So he's got to perform at his best, and so did Paul. Paul felt like, he needed an Arsenal scout around, or they were watching. So he was able to also perform at his best. I mean, me, I knew there was no one in the tower, and I probably wasn't that good to get scouted anyway.
Look, everyone listening, Rupert, knows the power of the game, right? Well, that's part of the reason we love it. And you say at one point in the film that after the tragedy, people just wanted to lose themselves in football.
When we first started out our training session, we had about 50 people turn up when we told people that, we're starting a football team. It's for young men within the community. I've never seen the amount of people that turn up, to be honest. And obviously it's one football team. You can only play 11. You can have a squad of 25. I mean, Sunday League, that's quite big for Sunday League. But we do it, and we've done it. I didn't expect the numbers to turn up. We had a professional boxer, David Adley, turn up to... came. He came to train. And a few other interesting people, bereaved survivors. There were survivors that knew that they weren't going to play in the team that just turned up because it was a session put on which they felt like they wanted to be a part of. It was insane, to be honest, the amount of numbers that came along.
Rupert, it's Jordan here. What did you want to get from this documentary? Was there thinking going into this, something you wanted to get across in particular and achieve from this? If so, what was that?
So I'm about building the legacy of the 72 people that lost their lives. I think in order for people to have a legacy, we have to tell the story. It's important to tell the story. It's important for people to know that we exist. I mean, for the first 3 years, we didn't tell anybody that we existed. So if you wasn't part of the local community, you would never know that we were formed. I allowed our first kind of newspaper article to come out in 2020, although prior to that we had other people wanting to be involved and wanting to kind of tell our story. I declined because it wasn't the right time. I didn't feel like the players were ready. I didn't think that we were ready as a club to kind of be stalked. Imagine being fish in a fishbowl. Once you tell people you exist, people are gonna want to kind of gravitate towards it. So yeah, after 2020, we kind of told people we were around and we existed, and we've slowly kind of built up from there. I think the other side of it is, wanting people to be involved. I think when you release a documentary, you've got to accept that the world are going to want to be involved when it touches them in the way that it should. And I imagine it has done, definitely from the feedback that I've received. And it's essential that you tell a story, and the people jumping on or wanting to be a part of it understand the story in its entirety. So I think there was a number of things that we had wanted, or that I wanted in particular, and it was to, in short, tell the story and bring people along for our journey. So that's it, essentially.
Rupert, you said you were initially reluctant to put your story out there, but we saw in the documentary where you had your kit launch, and bear in mind this is a Sunday League team at the time, this is what you were, and you had various England players, Damon Albarn, Sam Smith, Noel Gallagher, Ashley Walters, Hugh Jackman, Tom Cruise, AJ Tracy, all these mega celebs, A-listers, posing with your shirt, wearing your shirt, wishing you luck. That must have been so odd. And did it at any point get a bit overwhelming?
Overwhelming for me is probably not we don't walk hand in hand. I'm a super kind of chilled individual. Was it phenomenal? Yes. I think our aim is to be everybody's second favorite team. So definitely, having all of the celebs wear our kit just shows the power of Grenfell Athletic and what it could actually do to dismantle tribalism in football. I'm a Liverpool fan, and I've supported them since my mum put me in a shirt at like 3 or 4 years old. But I still support Grenfell Athletic also. One of them I love, and the other one I love more. Seeing the celebs and A-listers in the shirts just reinforces what Grenfell Athletic can be.
Football's such a great escape. I wonder, when you're playing opposition teams, are they more respectful of you because of where you've come from? Or once the game starts, we see in the final against Brentford Town, I'm not going to give any spoilers away, apart from their number 8 looks like a bit of a dirty bastard. Maybe he's unlucky in the edit. But are they really respectful? Or once the game starts, it's right, let's just spoil their thing, because footballers, white line fever exists everywhere.
Yeah, so you're right. White line fever does exist everywhere, and it definitely does with Grenfell Athletic. I think we often get teams that, like in our league, for example, that they don't have a squad or an 11 throughout the season, but when they're playing Grenfell Athletic, it's like pull out all the stops.
Oh, really? Get the ringers in?
Yeah.
You checking the team sheet?
Check the team sheet, taking pictures of players. Has he signed? But no, I think once a ball's kicked, I think everybody's respectful before and pre-match and post-match. You've got respect. But yeah, once they're on the pitch, I think everybody forgets who we are.
And look, testament to you for many reasons, right? I think what you've built is incredible. But I mean, I've watched a lot of these, documentaries of top teams, and the team talks are shit, and your team talks are incredible.
How do you want me to respond?
Yeah, I suppose it's not a question. It's just like fair play. Like, obviously you have such a strong message, and I think it's really interesting. And I presume every single game you mention why this team is there, right?
I don't actually.
Oh, really?
Yeah, no, I'm very different. I think for me, I've been doing it for 8 years, and I'm just very clear that, just like any other manager, that we want to win. Everybody loves a winning team. So in order to also help build out the message, I can do what I do as the charity, the Grenfell Athletic charity, off the pitch, providing opportunities for young people and the teams. But on the pitch, there still needs to be the message that we're no pushovers and we want to win silverware. So I don't often remind the players what this badge stands for. I'm very clear that the badge is the badge, and we should respect it when we wear it.
You've started a women's team a few years ago. I mean, there's a girl who scores an absolute ping in the documentary. It's a brilliant strike.
Steph Atwood. She's pinging in worldies from all over the place.
Steph is a gift. She's been a gift. She's the captain of the women's team, and she deserves to be captain. Not just for her ability, but she's injured. She's standing on the pitch. She's shouting at everybody. She's coaching them. She's young herself, and she plays the game like she's been in it for quite some time. Definitely can lend the ball a little bit more, but I just think that comes with making sure that she trusts all of her players. But yeah, no, she's a fantastic energy and leads by example. Goes without saying that the girl's got a ping. Like she can hit them.
I think something that really struck me, and it's so obvious when you think about it, is that one of the players who got out with his baby, went back in and got his ex-partner out, said actually it wasn't the night that was hard for him, it was afterwards.
Yeah.
And that's so obvious, isn't it, that something like this will affect you forever, for your whole life. And he says, look, this football team saved his life.
Joseph John, he's been with Grenfell Athletic from the beginning. He's been very clear that without the football team, he would not be alive anymore. But he's a dear brother, and I love him. We love him, and we've given him a lot of support over the years. I think the times where it's been very clear I've had mini snippets of clarity has been when we've taken our players away. Because when you take them away, you get to spend the most time with them. If you imagine we do a couple of hours of training a week and then a couple of hours on a match day, you're looking at maximum of 5 hours. When you go away for 5 days, the hours are there to, that you're with them 24/7, so you get to see who they are, their routines, what they're about. When we've gone away, we've really got to delve a little bit deeper into the souls of our players, and he needs us, much like the other players.
This documentary it's all about hope and unity, and it's amazing, and it mentions, of course, but doesn't really focus on the fight for justice. But at the moment, there've been no arrests, or criminal charges levelled against any individual in relation to the fire. The Met Police and the CPS saying it's unlikely any charges will be announced before the end of 2026 at the earliest, due to the sheer scale and complexity of the case. That must be felt so strongly within the community.
It's definitely felt strongly, for sure, by everybody. Grenfell Athletic has always been a place of solace and respite. I wouldn't call it escapism. I wouldn't describe it as an escape. But the players deal with Grenfell every day. Whether it's going past it, being underneath it, talking about it, whatever it is. Grenfell Athletic has always been a place for a player to unload, make mistakes, and have a safety net. It's crucial that I remain steadfast and I never mix the two. My personal views with what Grenfell Athletic was established for, and the people that are in it. I think we all have our opinions, but Grenfell Athletic itself is not politically driven, and there are organisations out there, mainly Grenfell United, that's fighting the good fight to make sure that justice gets served. But Grenfell Athletic is a completely different entity that drives for the future and the legacy of something that was horrific.
Loads of listeners will go and watch this documentary now and will probably wonder how they can help out. Like, can they buy shirts? What can they do? I was going to offer myself as a holding midfielder, but the level looks a little high for me. Some of those step overs, I reckon I'd do my ankle trying to chase them. But how can listeners help out?
We need volunteers with quality people that have got something to bring to the table, including fundraising. Over the years, we haven't focused heavily on fundraising, not because we're plush with cash, because we're not. People that can write bids and help us fundraise would be astronomical for us, like insanely important. I can't express that enough. Volunteers, coaches, people that just are happy to get their hands dirty. I'd say people that can open doors through networking and opportunities. I think if you can help open a door for a player to have some work or work experience or just different experiences, I think that helps, because we're really committed in showing all the players and young people that there's another step to life, that there's another part of life that they may not have seen before, and we want to give them that opportunity.
Well, it's a beautiful film out of a quite devastating tragedy, and I think what you've done is absolutely amazing, Rupert. So, again, not a question, just a compliment. And thanks so much for your time. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, guys. Take care.
You can watch the documentary Beacon of Hope, the Grenfell Athletic story, on TNT Sports. And that'll do for today. Thanks, everyone else. Thank you, Jordan.
Cheers, mate.
Thanks, Barry.
Thank you.
Thank you, George. Football Weekly is produced by Tara Papula with Joel Grove. Our executive producer is Phil Maynard. And we'll be back on Wednesday.